Capricorn, and welcome to the story of You Are, the story of I Am, the 2020 Planet Waves mid-year reading. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, here with a look at your solar chart, and your solar chart as it is manifesting between now and the end of 2020. When, among other things that happen, your ruling planet Saturn leaves your sign and enters Aquarius and is accompanied by Jupiter leaving your sign and entering Aquarius. And these are what I would consider positive developments. You can't always look at the astrology and say, oh, that's good and that's bad and all that, but in this case, I think that you will be happy with these movements, and this is partly because the pressure on you has been incredible this year. Going back to late 2017, there's been just this unusual, let's say. It's a combination of a kind of a weight and what might be a motivating drive. And then if we go back to 2008, the beginning of 2008, when Pluto arrived in your sign, that really is when the life that you are now living has its roots. And what is finally starting to fade out into something else as the emphasis of the planetary picture moves from Capricorn to Aquarius. Much of the planetary activity of the past couple of years has been in Capricorn, particularly of 2020, and your sign has been the scene of a series of rather rare conjunctions. Very unusual to have them happen in one sign in 1 year. 4 of them. One that you may be aware of, the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto that took place on a rather momentous day in the history of the current planetary shit show, the 12th day of January. Saturn, the great ringed planet that rules your sign, and Pluto, the distant, incredibly beautiful anti-planet at the edge of reality, which has been in your sign since 2008. It's now 2020. Formed a one-time only conjunction, which is approximately a 36 or 37, I keep forgetting, year event. The last time it took place was in maybe longer, 1981 or 82 or something, like way back at the beginning of the Reagan administration. Remember Ronald Reagan? In Libra. And so this is a truly generational conjunction. And that means that it is very rare that only a few of these have happened in living memory. That is to say, among we the living, very few of them have happened, and that when one happens, it is a big deal, and when it happens in your sign, it's especially significant, and it is also indicative of being under a certain kind of pressure and a pressure to change, and maybe even feeling like you thought you were stretched to the breaking point in 2018, and then you really thought you were stretched in 2019, and then suddenly the intensity goes up even more in 2020, and then the door opens to all this crazy stuff, and it all of this crazy stuff has a connection to your sign, and it will be interesting to parse out the ways in which the astrology manifests for you locally in a way that expresses something different for what the astrology in Capricorn is manifesting for the world. In any event, this is a challenging time to be alive, and your little corner of the zodiac is where much of the much of the like incredible throughput is coming through, and so you would do well to ease back on the pressure that you may feel like you're under, the fresh pressure to be a different person, the pressure to be a better person, the pressure to get things done, and take this time, these last basically 3 months from right now. Let's see, we're about to be in September, October, November, December, 3.5 months of your ruling planet Saturn being in your sign, and the last 3 months of Jupiter being in your sign, and do the completion work that you need to do rather than forging ahead into the future. There will be plenty of time to forge ahead into the future. You have many options and opportunities coming, and you are likely to be in a very different place 6 months from today than you are now, and you can count on that. You don't have to worry too much about that. But what I suggest you do is that you be vigilant about closure and completion. Perhaps do something like make a list of all the unresolved areas of your life and all of the things that you wish that you could resolve and move on from, and pick the 3 most difficult ones and work on those. You will gain confidence by doing that. You will get a sense of proportion and scale, and you're likely to discover something that you find to be a very positive breakthrough, which is that you have the resources to do what it is that you need to do. And by resources, I mean the personal strength and the energy, even if, as you're likely to be, you're a little tired of things being the way they are. Now is not the time to give up or to feel. Don't even allow yourself the luxury of feeling like you might want to give up, but rather, do what you can every day toward these specific goals. I think it's very helpful. Will be very helpful if you make this list of unresolved things, and you choose the 3 that you think are the most difficult, the most impossible to resolve, and ask yourself, break them down, and ask yourself what that is about. The time references are note what changed in 2008 and 2009. A lot changed in the world in 2008 and 2009. It is your karma right now to have the most pressing global situations associated with activity in your sign. So the recession and economic meltdown of 2008 and 2009 directly involved Capricorn, which is because Pluto entered Capricorn. The power grab, the global lockdown and economic crash of 2020 involved activity in Capricorn, and at the same time, any of the sources of strength that you tap into within yourself are associated with these same aspects. There's a book by a fellow named Richard Tarnas called Cosmos and Psyche. And let's see if I've got a copy of it handy. Here it is. I'll just give a little pitch for Richard's book. And it's kind of, it's a thick book. a long book, and written in a very scholarly fashion. And it was funny because those of us who were astrologers before it came out and who knew Rick or knew of Rick knew that he had been working on this book for like 20 years. And then finally it appears in like 2005 or 2006. And here's one of the things in it. When you look up aspects between Saturn and Pluto, you find out, you read the history of them. What this book does is it gives the history of astrological events charted against the history of the world, and associates planetary patterns with big things changing, and practices a kind of pattern recognition. And one of the patterns of aspects between your ruling planet Saturn and Pluto, which is something you've become familiar with over the years because you've had it in your sign for nearly 13 of them, is that there is very often a kind of reactionary contraction when Saturn and Pluto get together, particularly in a 90-degree type aspect, conjunction, square, or opposition. There are repeated documented incidences of plagues of various kind, or in our case, the plague motif of global change. I'll put it that way. And many people tend to fall in line. Fear becomes a dominant emotion, as we are seeing. I mean, there have been a number of really hilarious moments over the years where I've just had to write Rick an email and congratulate him on his observational skills. And we are certainly in a time of humanity when fear is being used as a global tool to keep people in line. But this is all leading to a but. Could you hear that? But there are those few who really rise to the occasion, who accept this typical abuse of power as a challenge rather than a thing that they feel they must in some way behave themselves with. And you are in a very good position to be someone who responds to world events in a way that is atypical and that is not bending to the rules, that is not willing to accept this new world internet order where there is, not on Fox, not on MSNBC, not on CNN, not really in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, not in the Big Six, but in the more observant, smaller places that have the ability to actually call the shots, discussions of things like mandatory vaccinations that include rearranging the genetic code of every cell in everyone's body. This is not like your father's polio vaccine. This is not visiting the pediatrician when you were 10. Commonplace talk of tattoos with ultraviolet thingy bobs that can be read by your cell phone thingy and connect to your bank account, and if you don't comply in certain ways, they'll turn your money off. Common discussion, well sourced. We do not have to comply. And there are many other bad things that are threatening to happen. And you do not have to comply. You do not need to get depressed over these things. You can, however, summon your tremendous power as someone who is born in a sign where you have an instinctive, animal-like understanding. Right, instinctive is on the level of like following your sense of smell. Instinct is not intuition. Oh, I think that's the right thing to do, or you just know the choice to make. Instinct is being able to follow a trail of scent on the ground. an instinctual knowledge of the material world that you simply must engage under the conditions that we are in. And one of though Saturn Pluto has been brutal and triggering of cascades of events, this was met. I haven't even touched the chart yet. This was met by another large planet. Here's Pluto Saturn. This took place around 20-ish degrees of 22 degrees of Capricorn. And then Jupiter, which moves much quicker than either of these two, than Pluto or Saturn, came through, and Jupiter has formed a series of conjunctions to Pluto in your sign, which is bringing out the spiritual side of Pluto. So Saturn Pluto brings out the authoritarian side of both. It brings out this sense of inevitability. It brings out a sense that things are large and mean and larger than you and meaner than you, which is in the order of the day to challenge. Right? Life is constantly presenting us with opportunities where we may rise to the occasion or be crushed by the occasion, where we may insist on living our lives our way, which is a real claiming, right? In a way, there's no such thing as rights, right? Rights are a very strange concept because they don't actually exist until you claim them, and you're unlikely to claim them until you're challenged. So you have the challenge you need, and you have the claiming you need, and you have the instincts you need to move around in this environment, changing though it may be. You've been a witness to the incremental changes because you have had Pluto in your sign. None of this is strange to you. You've thought this through in many ways, and now we're seeing some really dark stuff happened. And in all the years I have been writing about really dark stuff happening and documenting really dark stuff happening, and paying attention to what philosophers have been saying, and the great writers from places like South End Press. I mean, take a look at the catalog of South End Press. You should read some of those books. They'll be really good for you to understand the nature of the society which you live in. You have the benefit of having experienced the changes in the world concurrently with a similar process driving the changes in your personal life in parallel. They mean different things. There's different kind of assessments of what they represent, because there's a couple of different orders of reality, the very private and the very public, but there's something about you and your sign and these times in which we're in and you, where there's a convergence of the individual and the collective, and because this is happening so focused on Capricorn, puts you at a tremendous advantage. Even though you may feel like you're bearing the brunt of this stuff, it is equally true that it puts you at an advantage because you are connected to the changes from the inside. This is where you want to be connected to the changes. You don't want them imposed on you as some abstraction that you think is too large to understand. But one of the challenges you face is, first of all, the one that is being supported and encouraged by Jupiter conjunct Pluto, which is to bring your soul to the situation, to bring your deepest being to the situation. And then I think that is a challenge, right? That is a challenge in this world where there's so much emphasis placed on, like, oh my God, am I going to have enough money to bring your soul to the equation? But you've got the support for that But the second thing is to have the courage to challenge what you think of as being the status quo. And very often, especially where Capricorn involved, that is the status quo that was imposed on you as a child, that you had to conform to, or you knew that there would be trouble with the parental units and with the school and with anybody else, and you may have therefore kind of taken up a role, a persona, a sense of your being, a posture that was more compliant than you actually were. One of the beautiful things about Capricorn is that deep down, it's a fucking rebellious sign. I have a little joke in my kind of astro biohistory, is that anybody who fancies themselves a revolutionary ain't going nowhere without strong Capricorn in their chart. And you'll see that many of the people who did the most to change the world had some strong Capricorn signature in their chart. Many of the ones who were able to rebel the most were the ones who had a strong enough Saturn to be able to maintain their own structure in the world. Saturn, Capricorn, similar things. And by the way, as a Capricorn, if you do only one in-depth astrological project, get to know your Saturn and look up every aspect of every planet you can find to your Saturn in at least 3 different books. And don't believe any of them. Make up a new definition of what your Saturn is about. But Saturn, like Capricorn, particularly in its nocturnal manifestation, which is going to be the most important one to you, till it moves into Aquarius, and then you move into the diurnal manifestation of Saturn, which are 2 very different things. We'll get into that in a bit. Understand the way that you conceive of structure. And the way to understand the way you conceive of structure is to understand the nature of the planet of structure in your chart, about which much of this discussion today is about from the context of the solar chart. But the natal chart, Saturn, is crucial because it's going to give you a map to how to navigate through things larger than you, seemingly more powerful than you, and will ultimately provide you with a map to your own power. Let's keep going. And now let's bring in the place where the provocation, current provocation, is coming from, which is Aries. And here's how that looks. I haven't been using this diagram enough, but let's use it now. So just to recap a little bit, this is the Capricorn solar chart. We know that it's the Capricorn solar chart because Capricorn is on the 1st house. Here is all of the stuff going on, the New World Order rising. And here is the other house now where the emphasis is going to shift. So all year long we've been in this whole, I don't quite have words to describe it, thing I've never seen before. Tried as I may to look at it, and coming through Capricorn, and now let's say the protagonism, is that a political party? The protagonist party is coming through Aries, and it's coming through Aries in the form of Mars. Now, there's a lot of connections that you have here, and in a way it almost seems like you're connected to everything you might wish you weren't, but I assure you it's better to be connected than to not be connected. is that Mars is one of the planets of Capricorn. It's one of the planets of Capricorn. Do you know this? Because Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And exalted, if you look it up in the dictionary, says ruler, like in the loyal order of the benevolent and loyal order of the elk or something. The head of the lodge is called the exalted ruler. So exalted and ruler from the like knightly courtly times come in the same concept. And so the exalted ruler, or let's just call it the exalted ruler of Capricorn, is Mars. And so you have not only the ruler of Saturn in Capricorn, you have the exalted ruler of Capricorn about to make this very fancy maneuver. Now let's go back to just the mere fact of having Aries on the fourth house. I think this is very interesting placement because of what the fourth and Aries mean when you put them together. The fourth house is where we seek security. It's where we seek grounding. Usually it's associated with the father's family, the father's estate, the patrilineage. Not necessarily patriarchal, but in our society, the father generally is the person who provides the four walls and the roof over the head. That has changed in the course of the previous 75 years, but going back to, through the alleged 5,000 years of patriarchy, one thing we can thank Dad for is at least the dry roof and the food. And this also is therefore very closely connected with the institution of the family. Where we have Aries in the chart is where we seek our being. This could work better for some people than it works for others. There are some people who take Aries on the level of identity, a very superficial level for Aries. Aries includes identity. For example, under times when Chiron is in Aries, at least the last two cycles, identity politics goes wild. Identity politics is a creature of Chiron in Aries, which last happened in 1968 as the Vietnam War movement had reached its peak and was beginning to disseminate into many other movements and coalitions. Identity politics took place in the early years, and instead of there being one movement as there was in the 1950s during the civil rights era, this is history worth knowing. That held up for a while as the movement morphed into the Vietnam War movement, and for a long time the Vietnam War was the unifying factor. And then that gradually ceased to be, and we ended up with the feminist movement, the environmental movement, the gay movement, the New Age movement, various radical political movements, and so on. Probably name 5 or 6 others. I've named a whole bunch of different movements that emerged kind of like autumn leaves out of the Vietnam War movement. And then identity politics emerges out of that. So there is the identity level of Aries and Chiron in Aries, and you have Chiron in Aries now. And so what that is suggesting is, there it is, Chiron and Salacia in Aries, is there's a very strong level of identification with your family, and you are likely to have a sense, conscious, unconscious, or you like or that you don't like, that your ability to identify with your family is what protects you. Your ability to be recognized by them and, in a sense, approved of by them. What is now happening on every dimension of Aries, from its planet Mars to Chiron in Aries to Salacia in Aries to action involving Eris in Aries to planets in your sign, which is much more about who you are, needing nothing to do with approval. Well, not nothing. Somewhat, because Capricorn just has that inherently. This is all urging you to challenge the concept that you think your family has of you that makes you acceptable to your family. There are a diversity of things that someone might say to their family in fear that they will get kicked out. My mother, bless her heart, told me that if I pierced my ear, she would kick me out of the house. It wasn't until much later, when I was in like gender studies territory, I understood that to her that was just a little too gay for her son. Okay. There's a lot of those things that could get not that many people kick their kids out of their house, but the feeling, some do. Some wacky rich people do. Poor people less so. But the feeling that it could happen, that I have to, the feeling that I have to hide who I am, because if I reveal who I am, I'm going to get kicked out of the house. Make a list of all those things. While you're making lists, one of which is things incomplete, and then the other one is make a list of all the things you think would rupture your familial relationships if your family knew that about you. Could be anything. It could be that you're polyamorous. It could be that you're secretly a Marxist. It could be that you are... I nothing really seems freaky to me. I think that the people who don't think there's something freaky are freaky to me. But what are the things you fear would result or would have resulted in lack of approval? Those are the things to do. Those are the things to push into and explore and experiment with. And I am confident that several of them at least will involve your concept of your sexuality. We can see this for a number of different reasons. First of all, there's an inherently erotic quality to Chiron because it's so into the actual experience of life and the morphing of the animal nature and the human nature, which just means basically reminding us that we're inherently biological beings. Even Barbara Hand Clow, the great New Age astrologer, used the term chirotic to explain Chiron in one context. That's in the book Chiron, Rainbow Bridge Between the Inner and Outer Planets. A book worth reading, but there's other books you should also read if you want to understand Chiron in a more full way. But Barbara's book is fun, and it's one of those books that you never forget what she said. That's a good book. That's a well-written book. Okay, so the zone of this is what I must be to be acceptable to these family members is Aries, and you have Chiron there, and Chiron is the maverick. Chiron will always work the edge of the boundary. Chiron will be the thing that's different. And here's the funny rub on having Aries in the fourth place. While you might think that being who you are, actually who you are, is the thing that would result in some form of disapproval, that very quality of who you are is the thing that your family loves the most about you. And that your sense that they might get kicked out and on the street and don't pierce your ear and don't tell your family that you were at a swing club last weekend or whatever it might be, or that you're married to a wonderful husband, but you also have a girlfriend, all this stuff. Just be that person. They're not going to kick you out. If they do, write me a letter and I'll talk to them. I'll explain this to them. There's a wonderful book called Radical Honesty by Brad Blanton that I cannot recommend enough. Not Practicing Radical Honesty, not Radical Honesty Workbook, Radical Honesty for Kids, Radical Honesty in the Workplace. The original Radical Honesty. And, you might laugh your way through this book. It frightens a lot of people, but I don't think it'll frighten you. Here now is the astrology of the autumn of 2020, which is about everything I've been talking about. It all comes together in Mars retrograde. Mars retrograde happens here in approximately the last 15 degrees of Aries, -2 on the Taurus end. So about 13 degrees, ending right in the middle. And it also happens to Capricorn, because that's just the way astrology works. What happens in one cardinal sign happens in another cardinal sign, so I've indicated the retrograde with the red Marsy color here. Mars is going to hook around again to Eris, this rather rebellious planet. I've got a number of articles on Eris. We'll put up Facets and Castaway Woman. Facets and Fragments of Self and Calling Home the Castaway Woman. We'll put those up on the resources on every sign. Eris is a bit Chiron-like, but it's not so tidy about it. Chiron has a lot of Saturn to it. Eris is not interested. Eris is the very the antithesis of Saturn, and likes to just kind of like subversively blow things up. You've lived your whole life with Eris and Aries, but what's activating Eris and Aries now, two things. One is it's taking a series of conjunctions from Mars, and it's taking a series of squares from Pluto. So that's a lot of Mars, a lot of Pluto, and a lot of Eris all at once. And this is likely to have you itching to wage the revolution known as being absolutely who you fucking are. There's no better revolution to wage. And when you do that, you will take away the power that you think people have over you and claim that power back for yourself, which is good because you need that. You don't want to give your power away to people, especially if the only way that you're actually giving it away is by thinking they think a certain thing, when in fact they don't think that thing, or they might not think that thing, or it's none of their fucking business. So one of the boundary lines to draw here and to experiment with and to push the edge of and to cut out of the neurosis of is be clear with yourself about what is your business and what is not their business, and then live your business, do your thing, be who you are, and be real with people so that you're not doing this psychotic miasm thing where you're like living behind a scrim all the time and you're peeking out from behind it and you're like, oh, what is that? Who am I? Oh, look, this is who I am. No, wait, no, this is who I am. Wait, no, look, oh, this is really me. No, get the fucking scrim out of the way, the obstruction, and drop that, and just be like, hi, everyone. The people who love you, there's a bit of a litmus test here, because you find out when you are you and only you, and you're not trying to morph yourself to anyone, you find out pretty damn quickly how people feel about you. And you want to have some fun with the people who think that it's their prerogative to give you a hard time for being who you are. Not a lot of fun. Just a little fun. And what this to me represents is a process of claiming back, retrieving you from all of these projections and expectations and role plays and oh my God, we're Muslim, the women don't do that in Muslim religions, and my father doesn't want me to be this kind of a guy, and I'm supposed to play golf, but I really like paintball, whatever the heck it is. The hour is getting late, as Bob said. Let us not talk falsely now. One other concept here, where this again is all heading, where the Mars retrograde, this reclaiming of yourself, then manifests as Jupiter and Saturn move into Aquarius, the house of your true values, not the hardware store, the real thing, the priorities that you have. And while the Aquarius on the 2nd also indicates a tendency to think your values should conform to those of the group. You will have never been in a better position to assert your values against the group than with Saturn in Aquarius. That's going to last through like 2023-ish or something. And Jupiter conjunct Saturn, your entire chart is like howling, be yourself, and you will succeed at being yourself. I mean, as Bob said, try to be anything but yourself and you will fail. So I don't like that, because it rarely disagree with Bob Dylan's wording. That's the one thing he taught us. But I prefer to say it as be who you are and keep being who you are. Keep practicing being who you are as the one thing that matters, in this short lifetime. And you will succeed at it. And if you don't, you will have learned a lot. And if you didn't succeed at the end of learning a lot is a form of succeeding. And that is what I have to say to you today. Please check your rising sign. Please share this or other readings with someone you feel they might matter to, in case that you think, oh, well, only my sister needs to hear this, my mother needs to hear this. I know you've purchased one subscription, but it's one membership per family. If people like it, send them my way. But I want to make sure that this work gets where it will benefit people, especially if you think it's going to benefit you to have someone have the information, or benefit them. Please do that. Thoughts or comments? Drop a note back, and I'll see you over in a different sign. Thanks for your trust and your business, and bye for now.